So, you want to make a muse dash chart, but how do I make it good? There's not that many guides that exist, and most of the guides are super old at this point. Don't worry, I'm here to give you the charting technology. Some simple rules that you can follow to make it easier for yourself and make nicer looking charts. These rules are from my experience, not just of making charts, but also studying the official charts. Here's how we'll get through these rules. We'll go through each rule one by one and show examples from official charts using these. Today we're going over vocal charting, specifically for 9-star and below. Repeats and motifs. This is one of the most fundamental rules. We'll use an example from official 9-star chart, Darakuga Tenshi. This boss section has very consistent repeating parts. It uses boss projectiles for the background noise and drums, while the vocals are accented with other note types. It does this so it can make clear repeated sections. So here's that full sequence. Hold pattern into Gemini, followed by 2 doubles, flip that same hold pattern into a double, plus the background stream into the new pattern. Then we repeat the exact same pattern. The next boss section is a copy and paste of the first one. It takes the same patterns and changes the note types out for the phase 2 boss projectiles. Here's another example from the 9-star Danshi. The boss section mainly focuses on the vocals, using the boss projectiles, occasionally adding the drums. It repeats the same 3 into 2-2 stream pattern. Then when the song repeats, we flip the same pattern we just made. Then the ending changes and we transition out. But what if our part isn't repeating? We'll use an example from the 8-star chart, AI ni Initiate. This vocal part repeats a total of 4 times. Each time it's a little different from the last. They make it work in this chart by making each of the parts feel similar. Each of the section, the holds are the same length, it always happens on a vocal hold, and there's always a 3-tap zigzag. Finish watching the pattern and see if you can spot these. But what are motifs? Motifs are sounds or patterns that are repeated throughout the song. So here's our last example for this rule using the 9-star chart Meteor. Meteor has a special sound that repeats throughout the song, which sounds like a telephone. They use tap holes to chart this at the beginning. Later on, when the same sound happens, they use those tap holes to chart it again. Here's both clips of those sections with the tap holes in them. So, what do we learn from this rule? Repeat everything, even if you have to force it. Simple and one track. But what does simple and one track even mean? This is an idea of what sound to chart in the song, and what note types and patterns to use. We'll use an example from the 8-star chart Baby Pink. The whole boss section here targets the vocals. We mainly use boss projectiles for the vocals, and mediums and larges to section the song. So, our one track is the vocals, and we're keeping it simple by using very little note types, and using simple stream patterns like groups of 3 or 2-4-4, all in even numbers usually. But what if the part is very empty, or is very complex? Let's start off with an example that's more empty. We'll use the 6-star chart Euphoria by Endora. In this chart, since the vocals are so spaced during this boss section, they instead choose to chart the drums. We get this nice fuller repeating pattern using boss projectiles and large 1 for the drums, and we switch the note types between the lanes to make it more interesting. Switching the note types like they do in this song is very strange, and it's not commonly used like this. Now let's look at the opposite, which has a lot more complexity going on during it. We'll use an example from the 9-star Crossray. This boss section switches between the drums and the vocals. It uses boss projectiles and larges for the drums, and then when the vocals get faster, it uses holds. They chose to do the boss section like this because they were pushing for it to be a 9-star. If they followed only the vocals, it'd be hard to make this a 9-star. Let's look at the final and ultimate example. If you want to figure out how to do this concept, just watch this chart and play it over and over. The 9-star chart Forbidden Pizza. Watch the boss section and the pattern after, and look at how simple the note types are, simple the patterns are, and what they add in the after section to make it more interesting. So generally follow one track, and if it's empty or you need to add difficulty, you can try adding one more. Try to stick to using 2 to 3 note types per section, and don't make your patterns too complex. Stick to very simple to read patterns. The last rule we have is energy and progression. This has to do with note direction and difficulty scaling. This part mainly comes down to listening to the song and feeling the energy of the song. We'll use some of the examples already shown in the video and see how they progress or add energy to the parts. In most cases, there's only 3 types of note direction patterns you'll use. We have none, which is usually used for low energy parts. We have ease, which is usually the default and used for most parts. And cross, which is usually used for higher energy parts or mainly build-ups. Here's an example of each of those. Usually for note direction, you'll start the song off with none, and then it'll go into ease, and then if you have any build-up patterns, it goes into the cross. Always make sure if your section repeats 1 to 1, you should have the same exact note direction in it too. We'll use the 8-star drops as an example. It shows off all the rules we just talked about, except it uses it in an interesting way. This song starts off with high energy, so in the charts, we use the ease note direction. Usually charts will start off with none if there's no energy, but in this case, since there's high energy and it's repeated at the end of the song as well too, we start off with the ease note direction. Then, the song dies down and we go into the low energy part with no note direction. Here's the ending, which is the exact same copy and pasted. And then there's the last rule, which is progression. We usually use progression to add energy to a part. For example, if you have a part that repeats more than 4 times, the last half of the part you could add something more interesting. Or you could have part of a song that repeats, but has more energy. So we could add on to the existing pattern. Let's look at examples that we've shown throughout the video again. We have this boss section from earlier, which switches to phase 2. Then it has a transition part. After the music changed, it took the same pattern in the previous section and made it more complex. Now that I've gone over these 3 rules, I'm going to go through my charting process and see if I can help show them off while charting. So let's go through some of the main points of my process. One of the first things I always do is I like to chart out all the noises in the song. Mainly the important noises. If I hear something in the background that fits between them, I'll chart them as well, but I likely won't use them. This gives me a good idea of the patterns, repeats, and the energy of the song. It also lets me know if I need to use any progression throughout it. Here's a few of the special points throughout the song. One of the points uses the same idea from drops. The beginning and the end have the same drop, so I start with the high energy part. Throughout the song, I noticed there's a lot of these oriental pops. I tried to use a motif of a 1-lane large pattern. For the boss section, I chose something that's very easy to repeat. There was an instrumental solo section that had streams, and I chose to use very easy patterns to read. I made sure to simplify the stream patterns to make sure it's still a 9-star. I added progression to my motif with blue notes. Added progression to the last boss section, mainly for difficulty, and because the song slightly changes. Following on my rules, I was left with this that I made. This is紅蓮夜叉by葉月ゆら. Following those rules, you can probably make something similar to what I did. Remember, rules and fundamentals are always good to follow, but they can always be broken, and they can be broken in really cool ways. Charting is a creative thing. It's up to you to make the nice patterns, and to make them in a way that you like. And if you're still out of ideas, just watch official charts. They do this as their job. They're so much better than us.